we did it.
Thank you, Dean. Welcome to another evening of Cascade Speakeasy. The theme is If I Didn't Have to Work, I Would. But before we get started, let's everybody stand up and we'll lead for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, I am excited to introduce our Toastmaster tonight, myself. So that's why I'm so excited about it. And anybody have a joke of the day?
I do.
Anybody else? Okay. Please come share your joke of the day.
I had a joke, but I forgot it.
I'll try this around so we can at least see these.
An old man liked to raise tomatoes. So he went out in the backyard and he was tilling the soil to plant his tomatoes, and it was so hard he couldn't even turn a shovel full. And he sent a letter to his son, who's in prison, and said, "You know how I love to raise tomatoes. And I know if you were here, you would help me till that soil, but I don't know what I'm going to do." And 2 days later, he got a letter from his father. It said, "Do not dig up the tomato patch. That's where the bodies are buried." And sure enough, 4 FBI agents showed up 4 a.m. the next morning, dug the tomato patch up, plus the whole garden area. But they didn't find any bodies. 2 days later, the father got a letter from the son and said, "Go ahead and plant the tomatoes. That's the best I could do under the circumstances."
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I might have to go tell that. That's pretty fun. So there's been a few program changes that I want to go over. And we don't have any guests tonight, no. So Lloyd is going to, you're going to evaluate?
Yes.
Okay, Lloyd is our evaluator of tonight's speech. And our timer is Eric. And grammarian is Pat. Thank you guys for all stepping into those roles. I am also excited to introduce our general evaluator for this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Toastmaster. So I am the general evaluator and I have a team that helps me. One of my team members is Lloyd Smith, who will be evaluating the speech by Tim Bovee.
Thank you, Brian. As Brian just said, I'll be evaluating Tim's speech. Tim is giving his icebreaker tonight, which is a big deal. I think all of us can remember doing ours. I don't have the official form because I didn't know I was going to be the evaluator, but I'll do the evaluation and tomorrow I will type up the actual form and email it to you. So you have it. Generally speaking, the idea behind the icebreaker is obviously for him to introduce himself and then to hear some reactions to basic speaking abilities and traits and whatnot.
Thank you, Lloyd. Next member of my team tonight will be the timer, Mr. Eric Stepper.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. We have a timer for every meeting because we rarely in real life have carte blanche with how much time we have. We usually have an agenda and we got to stick to the times. So we practice that here in Toastmasters. Tim's going to be doing his icebreaker, which is 4 to 6 minutes. And I will use this stopwatch to keep track of the time. And then these cards. And for Tim, I'll show the green card at 4 minutes, the yellow card at 5, and the red at 6. Then I have 30 seconds to wrap up. We also have an evaluation. Lloyd will be doing an evaluation. And for the evaluation, it's 2 to 3 minutes. So Lloyd will get a green at 2 minutes and a yellow at 2.5. and a red at 3. We also have table topics. Table topics are 1 to 2 minutes, same kind of situation. 1 minute will be green. The next minute and a half will be yellow. And then 2 minutes will be red. And I will give my report when called.
Thank you, Eric. The next member of my team is the grammarian, and that would be Pat.
Well, as you know, the grammarian is the person who looks at the way language is used or misused, looks for interesting phrases, interesting vocabulary words, things that catch people's attention. And I'm always happy to do that. The other charge for the grammarian is to have the word of the day. And since the theme for this evening is, if I didn't have to work, I would, I decided to choose a word that's associated with work. I don't have it written, but the word of the evening is laborious. I was planting tomatoes in the garden and it turned out to be a laborious task. So the word of the evening is laborious.
And the last member of my team tonight is Christina. Thank you, Christina.
Tonight, I have the privilege of being the off counter. I will track on the spreadsheet the use of filler words such as misuse of and, well, so, particularly starting sentences with those 3, or stringing too many sentences together with the word and. There certainly are appropriate times to use the words and, well, so, but like what we're looking for is when they're used inappropriately. That's what I'll be looking for tonight. Also phrases like, you know, repetitions, and other filler type words or expressions. I will share my report and call upon to do so. Thank you, Christina.
That concludes the members on my team tonight. As stated, I'll be the general evaluator evaluating the meeting as a whole, and I'll give a report upon conclusion of the meeting. This time I'd like to turn it over to our Toastmaster, Barbara. Barbara.
Tonight, we have a speech. And the purpose of our speaker's presentation is to pique your interest and engage your imagination. Let us all open our minds, rev up our imagination, and venture into the inner workings of one of our newest members. Please allow me to introduce Tim Bofi, who's giving his icebreaker.
Thank you, Madam Postmaster. Greetings. Who is Tim? That is a great question, and even I have a hard time answering it. The reason for this difficulty is that Tim is like you, ever changing. The Tim of yesterday is not the Tim of today. Throughout my life, I've been involved in many organizations and private adventures. I was an Explorer Search and Rescue member, leader, and then went on to enlist in the Marine Corps and become a very gung-ho Marine as a young man. After my time in the service, in which my 2 children were born, I went on to establish a marginally successful business. After that business eventually collapsed, I went on to be a W-2 earner for the rest of the time up until continuing on today. While earning that W-2 wage, I've been able to engage in many exciting endeavors. I've held leadership positions in every organization that I've ever been a participant. Barbara, look out. I say that in jest because I've recently learned how to say no. I feel I can credit a good deal of my leadership ability to my time served in the Marine Corps. The Corps, for those who are willing to submit, instills something that is very hard to explain, yet somewhat easier to see. If I had to guess, I would say that Brian is a Marine. If not a Marine, a very hard charger in whatever branch of the service.
Maybe.
he's in. Right? I've been a successful competitive marksman and a very active participant in North Central Washington Gun Club. One of my larger achievements while a member of the gun club was to bring a new shooting discipline to Wenatchee. And that shooting discipline is still actively participated in today, 28 years later. I'm pretty happy about that. I've built or rebuilt 3 homes. There's repetition. A very laborious task. If you've ever been involved in that kind of endeavor. I've earned a commercial pilot certificate, however, never actually gotten paid to be a pilot. I've rebuilt 3 wrecked airplanes, one of which I went on to race at the Reno Air Races for 3 years. I've flown Miss Beadall in Japan and to many venues on the west coast of the United States and Canada. I'm an educator, not officially or like Pat in any sense of the word, but rather in small groups, one-on-one, settings at work and at play, on the ground or in the air. I've gotten to travel with my wife to many countries around the world and gotten to meet some very interesting people and experience some very unique cultures. Time I would not trade for anything. I am curious by nature and therefore a lifelong learner. In fact, just recently, while I was making a dental appointment, my hygienist wanted to schedule me for a Monday evening, or Monday afternoon rather, appointment. And I told her that I couldn't do that because I had a Toastmasters meeting that evening. And she replied, "I'm not surprised because you're always learning something new." I appreciated that comment. And after further consideration, I concluded that yes, she was correct. I am always stretching and learning new things. After all this background and about 500 words, the question, who is Tim, is still without answer. It is my fervent hope that you will allow me to stick around and involve myself in your world for long enough that one day you come to the conclusion that while you're still not quite sure who this Tim is, you're glad that he's around, if for nothing else, but to see what card he takes next.
Do we have a minute to? So much for that. It's nice to get to know everybody a little bit better, especially when we have so many, especially as a new member. I would like to introduce our table topics master to explain the purpose of table topics.
Thank you. Is Peanut are only online?
Yes.
Bless you. Thank you. I found the topic tonight to be interesting. I almost consider it challenging as written, so I modified it. I said, if I didn't have to work. Adam and Eve had it going on. The Garden of Eden. Splendid. Food in great abundance and an apple tree that enticed them into the abyss. Sent out of the Garden of Eden. Do you think the fall is what opened the door to that dirty word? Work. Right?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. It's a deep concept that I'm not prepared to answer, not to your satisfaction. It very well may have been, I would deduce from reading the Bible that maybe this work is punishment for us for not following along with the plan delineated in Genesis, I believe. However, the other side of that is, look how rewarding our work is in our lives and how difficult it often is for people to transition from employment to retirement and looking to fill their time. Oftentimes, people will fill that void with unhealthy activities. I aspire to fill my time with more healthy activities and take better care of myself than I currently do. That is an excuse. I can do better right now. The reward for working, I don't know what the intent or desired end state from God was to change our course of action based on Adam and Eve's conduct. However, seems like the world is overall a better place than it's ever been, yet still needs quite a bit of help with disparities in how people are treated, fed, and taken care of. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Great answer. Dean, I was going to save this for Rob, but he's a no-show. True to the theme of the night, if I didn't have to work, I'd what?
I would do exactly what I'm doing, which is volunteering for a couple of organizations that take up quite a bit of time. I would spend as much time outdoors enjoying this wonderful place that I've lived as I do. I love to be outside. I love to be active. And in the Methow Valley, I can do it all except sailing, I guess. But I do a tremendous amount of skiing and hiking, and I've decided I'm too old to go climbing with ropes and stuff anymore. I don't like to be that scared. There are a couple of things that surprised me about retirement. And in hindsight, I was naive about some of those. For example, I didn't anticipate having health issues like I do already. None of them are serious, but they take quite a bit of time to manage and to learn about. My most recent one, of course, was my significant knee injury, so I have to spend at least an hour a day doing rehab on that poor thing. The other thing that surprised me that it really shouldn't have was a lot of my friends have had health problems. And so that takes time and care to help them out. Both my parents passed away. I should have anticipated that, but I didn't. I don't know how I could have. They were older, but I didn't anticipate the long, slow decline that would take a lot of time and care, which I was happy to provide. In summary, then I would do pretty much what I'm doing. And it's been very rewarding, and I have enough stuff to keep me interested to last 10,000 lifetimes. Back to you.
Thank you, Dean. Good answer. There certainly are plenty of productive things in our life that don't have to be defined as work. If you didn't have to work, how might that go over with your spouse or children or significant other? Christina?
If I didn't have to work, how would that go over?
With your spouse
And
and your
children.
kids.
That's a good question. Because work isn't confined only to a 9 to 5 where you get paid. There's a lot to do that doesn't get paid. Like digging up the bodies in the garden. That happens. It's been interesting since Eric retired that our days are packed with obligations. Today, we were interviewing an applicant for the area director for Young Life. We did one last week. Tomorrow we'll evaluate. I'm on the board of directors at Columbia Valley Community Health. We are in the process of looking for a new CEO, so there have been many interviews going on for several months now to whittle this down to 3. It just seems that there are opportunities to invest in our community, invest in nonprofits, invest in our neighbors that could be considered work. More than that, those are the things I think that set a great example for our kids and our grandkids. How to use time wisely, how to invest in people who need it, in situations that need it. I can't imagine retiring, kicking back the couch and watching game shows all day long. I go crazy in a day. There you go.
But maybe it's a Captain Kangaroo.
Oh, wow.
Captain.
I can find it, I would. That's a different deal.
If you didn't have to work, does that mean you get a pass on painting the house, pulling weeds in the yard, picking up after everyone in the house? Myriad other tedious tasks. Pat, how would that look to you?
Well, you're speaking to somebody who's been retired for a very long time, and I haven't had to work. I have been able to work as an adjunct faculty member at the college, but as I've said to those who said to me, "You're retired, how come you're still working?" I said, "No, you don't understand. Teaching isn't work. For me, teaching is play and teaching is a joy." But if you talk about all those other things that you mentioned, if a person wants to have an orderly life, you need to keep your house in some degree of order. Otherwise, you could become a pack rat and have tons and tons and tons of things you've acquired and trash all over your house and not be able to get around. So that's just part of self-preservation, is keeping your house in order. If you have a garden and you want to be able to enjoy it, if it's vegetables, well, you can't let those weeds sneak in there and overtake your tomatoes or whatever else you have in your garden. You've got to keep the garden a growing green place, and then you've got to be sure to harvest what it is that you planted in your vegetable garden. If it's a flower garden, the same thing. You want to be able to enjoy. I would assume the reason that one plants a flower garden is so that you have something to enjoy, something that adds beauty to your life. So, work is something that people define by their experience with it. Christina talked about a 9-to-5 job. That's work, that's employment. Another word for it might be career. Scrubbing the kitchen floor or cleaning the bathroom could be defined as work, but at the same time, it's making your environment more livable and a happy place to be so that you can enjoy it. So I guess I don't see an issue associated with the question that you posed.
All good answers. I have to admit that teaching, I don't see teaching at all as a task. Maybe after 30 years, it becomes laborious, but I find it to be a place where I get juice, I get energy, when I get to stand in front of people and help them learn something, especially when they're actually learning it. You'll hear in the athletic world, the coach or peers say, "Good work out there," or many other facets of life. "Hey, good work out there." Barb, how do you think that relates to the actual definition of work, as in something you go out and get paid for?
So how does good work out there relate to actually getting paid? The first thing that came to my mind was my son did play sports. He played football. And kids are motivated by feedback. Kids want to hear from their coach that they're doing a good job, that they're doing it the right way, that they're doing what the coach expects them to do. And the team also wants all its members to work together to achieve the one goal. And yes, I'm trying to use this as an analogy to actually taking that to work, right? So in this organization, we all want and work towards sustainable. We all share the same mission. We all share the same vision of providing the best library services to everybody. But it's not about me, it's about my son I was talking about. So he currently works for BNSF, and he works on a team of over 50 people that their goal is to make the track safe. They all have to work together. He's one cog in a very long wheel. He probably hated me if I told you guys actually he was a cog. Don't say that. It's very important that he has clear directions from his coach, that he has given clear directions, that he follows those directions, and that he is also working as a team with all the rest of the group so that they stay safe and they get that job done at the end of the day. So he has gone from the field to a career. That's my relation.
Great job. You in?
Sure.
As a young man getting your start in life, being full of energy and enthusiasm, but you didn't have to work. What would you do? How would you feel about that lacking sense of productivity as an employed person versus the opportunity to float because you didn't have to work?
I have no idea what that question means.
Let me ask you again.
No, I don't like it. I'm going to talk about something else. One of the things that will surprise everybody, all of you in here who are not retired, is something called Parkinson's Law. It's an important principle in sociology. It was invented by some British guy back in the 50s. Parkinson's Law is that the work you have to do expands or contracts so that it exactly fits the time you have available to do it. And that explains something everybody in this room has noticed many times. If you had, say, a day to get something or other done, it will take a day. If you suddenly had 3 days to get that same thing done, it will take 3 days. And the end result will be about exactly the same, no matter how many days there will. Well, you would think when you retire, wow, look at all the free time. No, because everything expands to fill all of that free time. There are many, many days when I get to the end of the day and I think, what did I do? And I can't really articulate that I did, but I seem to work hard all day long to get or to not do those things, if that makes any sense. So if you have dreams of retirement, like, wow, I've got a big stack of books I'm going to read, or I'm going to paint all the time, or I'm going to get all this stuff done. I'm going to do a beautiful garden like belongs in a magazine. No, you probably won't. You'll be too busy, but you won't know what's going on. Parkinson's Law, the work expands or contracts, and it exactly fills the time you have available.
Perfect answer to the question.
I knew that.
Well done. If you didn't have to work, if you didn't have to work and you were a dwarf, where would you be off to, Eric? Special question.
When I saw the topic, I realized it was pretty laborious, and you've done a good job making it more interesting until just now. If I was a dwarf, it wouldn't change a thing. It wouldn't change a thing. I may have some obstacles. I may have to invent some things and be smart about how I work, but it wouldn't change a thing. I'm going to mash up some of these questions you asked during the evening. When I wanted to work 5 more years, and it just wasn't because I didn't enjoy going to work like I did for the first 37.5 years. I told Christina, I said, I'm done. And I didn't know what the reaction would be, but it was very receptive. It was like, oh, goodness, we don't have an income. What's the budget going to be? So she got to work on that, and we can make it through. So she was excited to have me home after the initial shock, and that was fun to see. The other thing is that I just have all kinds of things I want to do. I'm like you, Tim, I'm very curious. The internet is like a rabbit hole. You click on one thing, it leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. That's what life is to me, especially like YouTube, because YouTube can be productive. You learn on a painter and how to paint in a painting style, and it takes you to something else. I was looking at a painter called Brian Ruttenberg, and he was just exactly my style of painting. He had 81 videos, about 14 to 20 minutes. I watched all those videos, and in those videos, he talked about inspiration. from a guy playing the piano, from another painter, from a poet. He talked about this poet, Sam Minash, and he's called a concise poet. He writes the smallest poems with the most economical word structure that there can be. It's got to be totally laborious, but it was very interesting because it just creates this puzzle that you try and do. So I learned about him through this other guy, another rabbit hole. Thank you for the question.
Life redefined by the internet. I'm ready. The occasional individual says with the greatest of enthusiasm, I enjoy my job. Would taking it away from him be punishment? I believe, yes. I know an individual, was speaking to this individual last night, who is set to retire at the end of this year. He does not want to retire. He indicated that he would be miserable in retirement because he would be lonely. His work environment is quite honestly pretty terrible where he's working. His workmates are abusive. It's a toxic work environment for this individual. And he indicated that even though it was so terrible, he still was going to dread leaving because he would not be able to interact with people. So the answer to your question is yes, there are people who really, truly enjoy their work and really, truly will be harmed by leaving that work. I can, however, guarantee you that I'm not like that. Great. Good job, everyone. If all of my laborious questions are tedious and untenable, then Lloyd is the only one who unabashedly makes that apparent and clear to me. The rest of you are timid feeders in the lagoon of speech life. I created that just as I was, it just rolled. I'll now return the meeting to our Toastmaster. And I am going to apologize and run out the door. We have family in town and I'm supposed to be manning the grill as of a half hour ago. Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Moving on, sticker to the right.
No,
All right, I'd like to pass it right over to our general evaluator.
Thank you, Madam Postmaster. Now we will get the evaluation from our evaluators, and first up will be Lloyd evaluating Tim's speech.
Thank you, Brian. Tim, this was really a good icebreaker. I've seen many dozens of them. And this one was a cut above. There are several things you did really well. The evaluation form for all Toastmaster speeches is set up this way. What did you do well? First of all, your presence behind the lectern was really excellent. You had a pleasant smile on your face. You're really lucky because you have a great voice for speaking. It's very easy to listen to, calm, and yet expressive at the same time. So that's a gift that you can use a lot as you go along. I really like the concept of your speech and the theme, the lifelong learner theme. It's so easy to do an icebreaker which it's kind of one of these and then type speeches where you kind of walk through your life. You didn't do that. You talked about a lot of the things you've done during your life, but you did it in a way that was not the straight narrative. I thought it was very effective. You used your notes well. I don't know if you had notes or an entire manuscript. Which was it?
I had a manuscript.
Okay, well, you used it very well.
I didn't actually read it. I just kind of
Yes, that's.
chewed off of it.
That's the thing you did well. You did not read it as if it were in, a text. Every now and then you'd look down at it, but it was discreet. There's nothing wrong with notes. In fact, using notes well is an important speaking skill. There are many types of speeches where you should use notes, like say where you're talking about financial things or legal things, for example. Your timing was very good. Most people's icebreakers are either way too long or way too short, because figuring out how much material would fit into the available time is a skill that only comes with experience. But I think you hit it pretty much on the button. And so that was really good. What can you work on? These are going to seem picky because they are. There was no big thing that that you have trouble with. You tended to, I think you had your hands on the back of this chair pretty much the whole time you spoke, just like I'm doing right now. That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing to hunch over, for one thing, because you need to stay upright in order to get enough air to make your diaphragm work. If this were a bigger room, you'd have projection issues, I think. Generally speaking, and this leads to the next thing, there were no gestures in your speech. I doubt that you stand stock still when you speak, and just ordinary speaking. You probably gesture, just let yourself go, let yourself do that. And that would, I think, improve things a bit. Oh, I can read my own writing here. If you were nervous, you hit it extremely well. And that's also a good thing. The only thing I detected was every now and then there was a little bit of nervous laughter. There were 3 episodes of that, but no big deal. It wasn't like you look foolish or clownish or anything like that. But those are 3 minor things to think of. The big one is gestures. Try to work on that a little bit. To challenge yourself, what should you do? Well, give more speeches. I'm really looking forward to your next one. This was a cut above the typical icebreaker. Really good job.
Thank you.
Next on the evaluation list will be timers report. Eric, please.
You're doing what I would. Wow, did excellent on timing. Tim's speech was 6:08. So good job. You did a great job on the speech with pacing, which is unusual out of the gate. Usually people get, and then they just start racing through the thing. So I thought that stuck out to me. Lloyd, your evaluation was very good, and it was 321. Table topics, 139, Lloyd 140. Christine and I were both 220. Opsy twins. Pat 205, Brian 129, Barb 148, and Dean 213. And that's going to
And next is the grammarians report. Pat.
This turned out to be a lot of fun because almost every speaker had some interesting phrases, which I will share with you. Let's just start out with Tim, who was the speaker of the evening. I love the way he opened and talked about who I was yesterday, I am not today. And the same is true of all of you. What an engaging way to include all the rest of us. Then later on, he made a statement that said, I'm curious by nature, therefore I'm a lifelong learner. Curious by nature, lifelong learner, good fit, wonderful connection of words. He also was the first person to use the word of the day, laborious. He used it once and Eric used it once, so it got used twice. Other things, Brian talked about deducing something from reading the Bible. I think of deduction as being very scientific and cold, and the Bible as being very spiritual. And I loved the way that you put those two together. And then you talked about I aspire to. Aspire is not a word that we use very often. Dean referred to his knee as that poor thing. I loved it. But that was a neat way to refer to the suffering associated with that. Christina said, work isn't defined by a 9-to-5 job. She also said, opportunities to invest in our community could be considered work. It's a different way to look at those kind of things that we do that are not 9-to-5 and not paid positions. Barb apologized for using this, but it was wonderful. One cog in a very long wheel, like that analogy. Lloyd's explanation of Parkinson's law, that work expands and contracts to fill the time, was very enlightening. And I'm sorry Steve has left, because he had a number of phrases that really were very creative when he talked about Adam and Eve being enticed into the abyss. Enticed into the abyss. Ooh, creepy. He also talked about, as he left, life redefined by the internet. And the, let's see, I thought I had, oh yes. Before he left, he had another phrase. That people were feeders in the lagoon of speech life. Thin feeders in the lagoon of speech life. I don't know where that came from, but it certainly was vivid. So thank you very much.
And now as the general evaluator, I get to evaluate the meeting as a whole. Oh, one more, did I miss Christina? Where am I at? Counter.
Oh, welcome. We did well tonight. Barbara, two ums. One sentence started with and, one sentence started with well. Not bad. Tim, 2 sentences started with and, 2 repetitions that you caught yourself, so I didn't count it. Self-correcting, then you're on the right road. Lloyd, 1 2 you knows. Eric, 1 repetition. Pat, 1 When you very first came up to talk about your role, you started your sentence with well. Otherwise, the second time you came up, you didn't do that. So that's great. 1 so, 1 you know. Steve's gone, we won't go there. Dean, 1 and. And at one point you said ropes and stuff for climbing, which made me wonder what the stuff was. I don't know if you would have had time to further define that, but I lost the track of your speech as I was trying to define stuff for myself there. Brian, 2 ands. That's it. Great job, everyone.
And now I get to evaluate the meeting as a whole. Once again, changes in the schedule, everybody picks up their role. Fortunately, we have seasoned vets that know exactly how to do it and where the things are stored, and we always make the meeting go. The quality of what people bring to it always impresses me, especially in the table topics. It's a good table topics presentations when we have time to come in and present the content, and the evaluations, from our senior members are very valuable. So Tim, you're gonna love being a part of the program. I've conditioned my fiance to watch me whenever I speak and be my counter. She does a good job for me, keeping track. And Toastmasters has helped me a lot in reducing that. Thank you so much. Overall, I think it was a wonderful meeting. Look forward to maybe not next week. That may be an announcement because that would be Memorial Day.
Oh, yeah. No, we won't.
We'll be meeting next Monday. And now I'll turn it over to Toastmaster or the president, or in this case, both, Barbara.
Thank you. So before we close up the meeting, we've got 5 minutes. Are there any announcements?
We had our annual district conference this weekend. Friday night was the business meeting. Every club was supposed to have its president and vice president of education. Barbara was there, so thank you, Barbara. Rob was not. He was on an airplane on the way to California. I was really convenient for him. But that went well. We did what we were supposed to do, elected officers and that kind of thing, although it probably sounded like kind of a Stalinist type election, the way it was done, but that was all prearranged anyway. Don't worry about it. Democracy is a wonderful thing. Everybody ought to own one. Then on Saturday, we had the regular conference stuff, education sessions. I did the first one. And then we had several others. We had an international second vice president, I think she was, who was there to do the keynote. A remarkably boring speaker in any event. That's, you know, I mean, obviously smart, but not very interesting. And then we had our speech contest, our international speech contest. Judges aren't supposed to say that they judged, but I got all 3. But I got first and second in the incorrect order. Were either of you there for the contest?
No.
The quality was not the best it's ever been. I, for one, am looking forward to the live conferences. I know Christina and Eric have both been at those. Those are fun. They're networking events, and the online ones, I thought, those are tedious. That just seemed that way. But we got through it. That's a good thing. We do need to think about electing officers for next year. The real world deadline is the end of June. The TI fake deadline was a week ago.
I want to make a comment. How many people got to see his speech? Well, as I told him, because he's unduly modest, it was about humor and how to use it effectively. And I found it very informative. And he was very natural, and I enjoyed it. And I was so proud of you because you were ours and you did a great job. So
Was the meeting recorded as a whole, or could we watch the speech?
the recording, you know, the recording is now underway thing came up several different times, but I have not yet been able to find out who's got that recording. If you can corner Vicky, I think she may know.
Let's see if
Maybe.
I can make it available
Yeah.
for the rest of the group, even the your section. The speech would be great to hear. Yeah,
Yes,
was
I
it
would.
great? Sorry.
In the recording.
Yeah, we can, if Vicky doesn't have it, I think I might be going to pay more, but anyway, I'll figure it out. Or one way or the
One of
other.
us will figure it
I didn't know they were going to be recorded, but obviously it was.
Any other announcements this evening?
So just to verify, the next meeting that we have will not be on the 30th, but the 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because Monday's,
we don't,
well,
I know
Monday's,
the
the-
days.
we don't meet on holidays.
yeah, Monday's the federal holiday. for
Yeah.
Memorial Day. We have tried occasionally to meet on one of those Monday holidays, and one time it was just Eric and me and one other person, so we soon felt, actually, we didn't soon learn not to do it, but eventually.
Well, if that is it, then I just want to say this was a great meeting, and Tim, thank you for doing your
Yes.
your
Good
speech.
job.
I agree that you have a very good speaking presence and
Mhm.
voice, so I'm looking forward to seeing more speeches from you. So, all right, that's it. Meeting adjourned.
And I didn't hear one person problem.